Have you ever met someone who didn't need to raise their voice to be taken seriously? They walk into a room, no shouting, no bragging, and yet somehow everyone listens, not out of fear, but respect, the kind of quiet authority that makes people pause, adjust themselves, pay attention. And then there's the other side. You try to prove your worth, explain yourself, be liked. But the more you chase respect, the less of it you get. You speak, but your words feel small. You show up, but no one really sees you. What if I told you that earning real respect has nothing to do with being loud and everything to do with being unshakable, stoic, calm, grounded in who you are, even when no one's watching? Because here's the truth. The world doesn't respect noise. It respects mastery. The ones who move with purpose. The ones who set boundaries without guilt. The ones who don't need validation to feel worthy. So why do some people get immediate respect and others are constantly overlooked? What are they doing differently? Stay with me until the end, because the final principle, it doesn't just change how people treat you, it changes how you carry yourself for life. Number 1, speak less, say more. Let's talk about something most people overlook. How silence commands more respect than noise ever could. In a world where everyone's trying to out-talk each other, there's something powerful about the one who doesn't speak unless there's real purpose behind their words. You've probably seen it. The person who doesn't say much, but when they do, people stop scrolling, stop fidgeting, and listen. Here's the truth. People don't remember everything you say. They remember how you made them feel and how confidently you carried your message. When you speak too often or without intention, your words lose weight. But when you speak with clarity, calmness, and precision, you create impact. Respect doesn't follow volume, it follows value. Think of it like a well-cut gemstone. A single word placed perfectly can shine brighter than 1,000 noisy sentences. Imagine a crowded room where everyone is talking over each other, and then someone like Marcus walks in. He's calm, grounded. He doesn't jump into the noise. He observes, and then, when he does speak, it's short, it's intentional, and it lands like thunder in a quiet valley. That's presence. That's power. A few years ago, I worked with a guy named Travis. He wasn't the loudest in the room. In fact, most people mistook his quiet nature for shyness. But every time a problem came up in a meeting, Travis would wait, let the noise pass, and then, with maybe 2 or 3 sentences, he'd offer a solution that left everyone in the room thinking, why didn't I see that? He didn't have to raise his voice. He didn't have to dominate the conversation. He simply spoke with weight and earned everyone's respect without ever chasing it. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus said, "Better to be silent than to speak foolishly." That's not just about avoiding embarrassment, it's about conserving energy and preserving dignity. When you stop speaking to be heard and start speaking to be understood, everything changes. You move differently. You're no longer reacting, you're responding with purpose. How to practice this? First, pause before you speak. Ask yourself, am I adding value or just filling silence? Second, eliminate the need to always explain yourself. The more you over-justify, the more you seem unsure. And finally, let your silence speak. Sometimes the most powerful message is the one you didn't say, but made everyone think about. Respect isn't loud, it's intentional. And if you can learn to say more with less, you'll be heard even when you're silent. Number 2, set boundaries without guilt. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood forms of strength, setting boundaries without guilt. A lot of people think saying no is rude, selfish, or cold. But the truth is, nothing earns quiet respect faster than someone who calmly draws a line and sticks to it. No drama, no anger, just quiet clarity that says, I respect myself enough to protect my peace. Here's the reality. When you don't set boundaries, you train people to believe your time, energy, and values are up for negotiation. And once they learn that, they'll keep pushing, not because they're evil, but because you've given them permission. Every time you say yes when you really mean no, you chip away at your own dignity. You become more exhausted, more resentful, and less respected. Think of it like a locked door. Picture your life like a home. If your front door is always wide open, anyone can walk in at any time with any agenda. But when you install a lock, it doesn't mean you hate visitors. It means you get to choose who enters and when. Boundaries are that lock. They don't keep everyone out. They simply protect the peace inside. And people respect a house that's well kept. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The man who values himself needs not the permission of others." That's what a boundary really is. It's a sign that you've stopped asking for permission to honor your own needs. It's not an attack, it's self-respect. And the more calmly and consistently you do it, the more others will adjust. A few years ago, I had a co-worker named Rachel, super friendly, always helpful, but constantly overwhelmed. Why? Because she couldn't say no. Every request, every favor, every late-night message, she'd take it on. Until one day, she snapped, not at anyone else, at herself. She realized she'd been sacrificing her own time, health, and family just to avoid disappointing others. So she changed. She started saying, "I won't be able to do that," without apology. And something surprising happened. People didn't get mad. They respected it. They backed off. They started managing their own problems. Because when Rachel finally valued her time, others did too. How to handle this? First, ditch the guilt. Saying no isn't rejection, it's direction. It tells others what you allow and what you don't. Second, don't over-explain. A simple, calm, "I can't commit to that right now," is enough. And third, stay consistent. A boundary isn't a one-time fence. It's something you maintain daily without fear. At the end of the day, people might not love your boundaries, but they will respect them. And more importantly, so will you. Because every time you say no with peace, you're saying yes to something more valuable. Your time, your energy, and your self-worth. Number 3, carry yourself with calm confidence. Let's talk about a kind of respect that doesn't require a single word: calm, physical presence. We often assume respect comes from how well we speak or how much we do. But in reality, the way you enter a room, the way you sit, the way you hold eye contact, those quiet cues tell people everything they need to know. Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't race to fill the silence. It arrives still, grounded, and sure of itself. Here's the truth. When someone is calm, unshaken, and deliberate in how they move or speak, people listen, even before a word is said. That's because most of the world is in a rush. Most people are fidgeting, checking their phones, speaking too quickly, or looking for approval. So when someone walks in with slow steps, good posture, and composed stillness, they immediately stand out. It's not arrogance, it's intention. Think of it like water in a glass. Imagine 2 glasses of water. One is constantly trembling, rippling from every small vibration. It looks unsettled, reactive. The other, completely still, clear, steady. Which one would you trust to reflect the truth? That's what calm confidence is. It's being so anchored within yourself that you don't need to prove anything. And that stillness, it draws respect without effort. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "Let your composure be your message." That one line says everything. You don't have to dominate conversations, correct every misunderstanding, or perform your value. When you carry yourself with quiet authority, your presence does the talking. People trust calm more than charisma, and they remember how you made them feel more than what you said. I remember a moment during a team crisis at a previous job. Everyone was panicking, talking over each other, pointing fingers, pacing around. Except one guy, David. He didn't say much. He sat still, listened, then calmly asked one question that reframed the entire issue. The room quieted. People stopped. Why? Because his calm made him the anchor in chaos. He wasn't trying to control the moment. He just refused to let the moment control him. How to handle this? First, slow down. Speak a little less. Breathe before responding. Second, maintain eye contact, not to intimidate, but to connect. And finally, be still, not stiff, but grounded. Let your posture and presence tell the world, I don't need to rush, I belong here. At the end of the day, respect isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. And calm confidence, that's the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself. It's already felt. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 4, choose integrity over popularity. Let's talk about one of the hardest decisions in a world obsessed with being liked, choosing what's right over what's popular. In today's culture, it's easy to fall into the trap of applause. People will cheer when you say what they want to hear, when you fit their mold, when you play the part. But respect, real, lasting respect, that's reserved for those who stay true to their principles, even when it costs them the crowd. Here's the truth. When you chase popularity, you give away your power. You start tailoring your words, your actions, even your values based on who's watching. And that's a dangerous game, because the approval of others is never stable. One minute you're celebrated, the next you're criticized. But integrity, that stays solid. That's what anchors you when the noise gets loud. Think of it like a tree in a storm. Picture a tall tree during a heavy storm. The branches sway, the leaves get torn, but the roots, they hold. Why? Because they go deep. That's what integrity does for you. It grounds you. When everyone around you is shifting their opinions to fit in, the one who stands firm becomes unforgettable. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts deep. Epictetus said, "The applause of fools is the ruin of the wise." And he was right. The wise aren't moved by noise. They aren't distracted by temporary validation. They know that real honor comes from living in alignment with their values, not from being liked, but from being consistent. I remember a moment when my friend Jessica was asked to bend the truth at work to please a client. Everyone around her said, "It's not a big deal, just say what they want to hear." But Jessica didn't. She stuck to the facts, even though it cost the company that client. And for a while, she wasn't popular in the office. But a few months later, when a much bigger deal was on the line, guess who everyone trusted to represent them honestly? Jessica. Her integrity made her indispensable. How to handle this? First, define your values. Know what matters to you. Second, be willing to disappoint others if it means staying true to yourself. And finally, don't measure your worth by how many people clap. Measure it by how you sleep at night. At the end of the day, popularity fades, trends shift, and applause dies down. But character, that leaves a legacy. Respect doesn't come from being liked by many, it comes from being trusted by a few. And that kind of respect, it never goes out of style. Number 5, be unbothered by insults. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood strengths, emotional self-control when provoked. Insults are designed for one thing, to make you react. And the moment you do, when you snap back, get defensive, or try to prove your worth, you give the other person exactly what they wanted, your energy, your attention, your peace. But here's the truth. Your silence in the face of disrespect says more than any comeback ever could. Here's what most people don't realize. Insults don't reveal your weakness. They reveal theirs. When someone goes out of their way to belittle, it's often because they're unsettled by your calm, your confidence, or your refusal to play by their rules. So they poke, they prod, they try to get a rise out of you. But when you don't flinch, that's real power. Think of it like a fire that won't catch. Imagine someone tossing match after match at a stone wall. They're frustrated, hoping for flames, waiting for chaos, but the wall doesn't burn. It doesn't even notice. That's you when you've trained your mind to stay still. The insult lands, but it finds nothing to ignite. And the more they try, the more ridiculous they look. That's the brilliance of composure. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. Marcus Aurelius said, "He who angers you owns you. Walk free." And he meant it. The moment someone can control your emotions, they control you. But when you rise above the bait, when you stay centered instead of reactive, you become untouchable. Let me tell you about a guy named David I used to work with. Quiet, smart, steady. There was another guy in the office, Rick, who loved stirring drama. One day during a meeting, Rick made a passive-aggressive joke about David's ideas. Everyone turned to see what David would do. But David didn't blink. He smiled slightly, nodded, and kept explaining his point with calm authority. Rick looked like he was trying too hard. The room shifted. People stopped laughing with Rick and started respecting David. How to handle this? First, understand where insults come from. They're often a reflection of the speaker's inner chaos, not your shortcomings. Second, practice the pause. You don't have to respond right away or at all. And third, carry yourself like someone who answers to something higher than public opinion. Your own peace. At the end of the day, the one who can't be provoked holds the highest ground. People respect those who can stay calm in the storm because they know storms don't shake mountains. Be the mountain. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 6, stay disciplined when no one's watching. Let's talk about a quiet form of power most people overlook, doing the right thing when no one's around to notice. It's easy to act noble when the spotlight's on, when people are watching, clapping, or admiring. But what about when no one sees? That's when real character shows. And ironically, that's also when the deepest kind of respect is earned, not from others, but from yourself. Here's the truth. Discipline in private creates confidence in public. When you keep your promises to yourself, when you wake up early even though no one's checking, when you push through the work no one's praising, you build a self-trust that no applause can give you. People can sense it. They may not know the details, but they feel the integrity in your presence. Think of it like an iceberg. Only 10% of an iceberg is visible above the surface. The other 90%? Hidden, massive, foundational, and holding everything up. That's what private discipline is. What the world sees, your composure, your focus, your confidence, is just the tip. But it's the unseen effort, the quiet consistency that keeps it all from sinking. Seneca once said, "True greatness is doing right without the crowd." That means not needing an audience to validate your choices. It's choosing principle over praise, progress over attention. Because when you know what you're building, you don't need constant approval to keep going. Let me tell you about someone I met named Rachel. She was never flashy, never loud, but always on time, always prepared, always steady. One night, after everyone else left the office, I stayed behind to finish a project, and I noticed Rachel still at her desk, not because anyone told her to stay, but because she had a standard for herself. No audience, no applause, just quiet, consistent effort. And months later, when a leadership opportunity opened up, she didn't even need to campaign for it. People just trusted her. Why? Because her actions spoke long before her words ever did. How to handle this? First, define your private standards. Who are you when no one's looking? What promises do you keep to yourself? Second, commit to consistency, not perfection. Show up for yourself daily, even in small ways. And third, remember, the most respected people aren't the ones who talk about what they'll do. They're the ones quietly doing it. At the end of the day, respect isn't built in the spotlight. It's forged in silence. Let your private discipline shape your public strength, because when you can trust yourself, others will too. Number 7. Walk away from what diminishes you. Let's talk about one of the most powerful forms of respect you can show yourself. Leaving, not slamming the door, not making a scene, just walking away, quietly, cleanly, completely, from anything that chips away at your dignity. We're taught that strength means staying, fixing, enduring. But sometimes the boldest move is choosing not to participate in your own devaluation. Here's the truth. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not everyone deserves your presence. When you keep entertaining disrespect, gossip, manipulation, or emotional chaos, you send a message. I'll stay, even if this poisons me. And once someone knows that, they stop trying. But when you leave without warning, without an explanation, without anger, just a calm, final exit, you reclaim a level of self-worth that words can't touch. Think of it like exiting a burning room. Imagine standing in a room slowly filling with smoke. You smell it, you see it, but you stay, hoping the fire will put itself out, hoping someone else will open a window. That's how we often treat toxic situations. But the wise, they don't wait to be saved. They walk out. And when they do, they don't explain why. They don't beg anyone to understand. They just leave and breathe. A woman I once knew, let's call her Amanda, worked in an office where she was constantly undermined. Subtle jabs. Meetings where her ideas were repeated by others and applauded. Smiles that carried knives behind them. She stayed quiet for months, hoping things would change. But one day, after another backhanded comment from her boss, she simply closed her laptop, stood up and said, "I'll be working elsewhere tomorrow." No drama, no speech, just a calm departure. And you know what? That moment stuck with everyone in the room, not because it was loud, but because it was absolute. How to handle this? First, pay attention to how people and places make you feel. Do you shrink? Do you second-guess yourself? Do you leave drained more than energized? That's your sign. Second, stop explaining your exits. You don't owe people a thesis on why you're protecting your peace. Third, walk away with grace, not to hurt, not to punish, but to honor yourself. At the end of the day, the world watches how you treat yourself. When you refuse to stay where your soul feels small, people notice. And more importantly, you remind yourself what you deserve. So if something diminishes you, leave. Not because you're weak, but because your spirit is too strong to stay where it's not respected. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.